Reason number 46 to get a Nissan. Features, especially the ones you get with the 2025 Nissan Kicks Play. Integrated Apple CarPlay, a spacious interior, advanced safety features, and more room in your budget. Because it's the most affordable new vehicle in Quebec. Get the 2025 Nissan Kicks Play S from only $22,774, including a $2,600 cash purchase bonus. Visit your Nissan dealer today. Until March 2nd, conditions apply. Details at Nissan.
As a country, we've been through a lot over the last few years. We had a historic pandemic that wreaked havoc on communities and businesses. And then disruptions from the pandemic caused price hikes that put a strain on family budgets. And people feel like no matter how hard they work, sometimes it feels like they're just treading water. So I get why people are looking to shake things up. What I cannot understand is why anybody would think that Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you, because there is absolutely no evidence that this man thinks about anybody but himself.
Now, that was former President Barack Obama, of course, speaking at a campaign stop for Kamala Harris. And we have heard that campaign repeatedly going after Donald Trump and urging people, do not boo, do not boo, vote. Now, we know that Donald Trump is speaking right now. I see him live on CNN speaking after his New York City rally that happened on Sunday. Here with us to speak about the U.S. election and unpack some of what's going on is Jonathan Kalles. He's Senior Director at McMillan Vantage, a national public affairs firm and former advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Good morning, Justine.
Can I get some of your comments on the most recent rallies and what you're hearing coming out of each of the campaigns? We heard a little bit of Obama there. I'd like to get your take on the sort of how the Democrats are positioning themselves and also what's coming out of the Trump campaign.
Well, I think, let's take a look. We're a week away.
Yeah.
Voting has started weeks and weeks ago in most states, and the numbers are pretty high in terms of voter turnout already, which means a lot of people have made up their minds. And so one of the real questions is, who's left out there that's going to be persuaded, that may change their vote? That's one. And two, who is probably leaning to one or the other, but may not go out to vote? That's what this last week is about, is getting a few undecided to make a decision. There aren't that many. And to get those that are on the fence about whether they should even bother to vote, to get off their couch and go vote. So that's what the campaigns, both of them, are focused on. And so what you're seeing from Donald Trump is he's trying to rile up his base. He's clearly said, I'm not going to move people. I'm not going to switch them over. Those who aren't voting for me, they're not going to suddenly have an epiphany. But I want to make sure that my voters turn out to vote, show up. And so that's why he's been going even further than in some cases he has in the past on some of those core hot button issues to his core supporters. And the rally at Madison Square Garden on Sunday night was the epitome of that. Lots has been said already about it. It was pretty shocking, I think, to a lot of people. And so what you're seeing from the Harris campaign is taking advantage, perhaps, of how far the MSG rally went and trying to paint a picture, an apocalyptic picture, maybe, of what life will be with Donald Trump. Again, to convince maybe the very few moderate voters who are still undecided, who say, well, I was still open to Trump, but now I won't be. I honestly don't think there are tons of those voters. There are a few.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, again, to drive Democratic voters, certainly in certain specific communities and sub-communities. So it's not African Americans, it's specifically Black men. It's not all Latinos, excuse me, but in particular after the MSG rally and the attacks on Puerto Rico, calling the island a pile of garbage, it's targeting Puerto Rican voters who there is a percentage, 15, 20% even, that were open to voting for Trump. So what's interesting tonight, and we'll see it tonight, the contrast, is that Donald Trump's rally at 7 p.m. tonight in Pennsylvania, the swingiest of swing states, is in Allentown. Now, maybe not known to many people, but Allentown is actually today a majority Latino American city, and the biggest subgroup of that are Puerto Ricans. And he's going there. Now, that was not planned in the last 2 days as a reaction to the comments about Puerto Rico, but there are actually planned protests. You're hearing organized protests coming, and also organized get out the votes for people who may not have shown up to vote. So will that change? We're talking about a state that could turn on literally a few thousand votes, and that could be the difference. In contrast, what you're going to see tonight from Kamala Harris is she's going to the ellipse. That's the area between the White House and the Mall in Washington. It's also the location of Donald Trump's inciting speech on January 6th, 2021.
Interesting choice.
And so it's clearly a very, the decision to do it there is clearly to draw a contrast. I think what you're going to hear are attacks on Donald Trump for him trying to subvert democracy, and also trying to mix in at the same time an optimistic economic message about her plans for making things better for people. She's going to try to walk that tightrope of going hard negative on Trump and also trying to be optimistic, which, try to get those voters out. So a week left. Most voters have decided, but, still a few people probably who haven't. And that's what we're going to watch over the next 6 days, where the candidates crisscross those 7 swing states that are left.
Mm-hmm. As you say, it's surprising. It would be surprising to me at this point to meet somebody who hasn't yet made up their mind, because these two camps are so very different from one another. And it does look to me like they're both really digging into their base. What do you think is left up for grabs? Is it just dependent on somebody making a mistake like Donald Trump did with his rally and calling out Puerto Ricans, and all of a sudden maybe that opens up a new opportunity to go grab some new voters? Or are there actual still undecideds elsewhere in the United States right now?
I think for the most part, what we're talking about are people who haven't decided if they're voting or not.
Okay.
And I think that's really the crux of it. And you'll hear the term GOTV, get out the vote. I'm sure you did it when you ran. And that is the crux of the game in the last week.
Right.
Is knocking on doors. You're not knocking on doors to convince people to vote for your candidate or not. You're really just trying to make sure that you have your IDs, meaning you've identified who your likely voters are, and now your job is make sure they go out and vote.
Mobilize.
If they're seniors, do you need help transportation to vote? Do you know where you can vote? Are you registered, or are there problems with your registration? That's what this is going to be about. And again, there are 7 swing states that we've talked about: Arizona, Nevada, out west, Georgia and North Carolina more in the south, and then 3 Rust Belt states in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Those last 3 states came down to between 20 and 40,000 votes in the last 2 elections. That's it. That changed the outcome of the election. So that's what we should be looking at on election night in the urban centers in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, in Michigan. You need to look at Detroit. In Wisconsin, you want to look at Milwaukee. What is the turnout in the core urban districts? Because that'll tell us if Kamala Harris is getting her voters out or not.
Well, it's a cliffhanger, that's for sure. And I think there's going to be a lot to unpack from now until the vote, but certainly a lot to talk about on Election Day itself and the aftermath. Jonathan Kalles, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.